were a special case. So it wasn't a great time to start a motor club. The other problem was there were no cars. For the last 10 years, all the car factories have been making tanks and spitfires and things like that. So cars were very few and far between, and the ones that there were about all kind of pre-war models. So 1948, the tendency was more towards motorbikes, and the bulk of the membership of the Hexham Motor Club, when it started, were motorcycle riders. And what happened was a gang of them met up. They used to meet socially in Hexham Marketplace, and they had a meeting one evening in Hexham Marketplace and decided to form themselves into a club, which they did, and they got affiliated to the Autocycle Union, the ACU, and they used to run basically motorcycle trials, 3 types of motorcycle trials. You had observation trials, which is the thing where you get on the motorbike and ride up a stream or up a rough bit over rocks and things, and you try not to put your feet down. Then you had time and observation trials, which are basically the same thing, but you had a specific time to do them. And then you had road trials. And a road trial basically is a car rally on a bike, on a motorbike. And Hexham Club used to run an awful lot of them. Sometimes you had a pillion, sometimes you rode solo. If you rode solo, you had a little bracket on your handlebars where you put the route instructions, which were all very simple, just turn left, turn right, that sort of thing. And that was how the club started. It was basically a motorcycle club, and as well a lot more. And if you look at one of the shields, one of the trophies we have there, you will see on the Parkwell shield, which is at the front of the table on the far side, you will see that the little round L in the middle is a motorcycle, because the Parkwell shield was a championship. It was a series of 4 motorbike trials that they ran. They had various courses. There was one at Fallowfield, just north of Hexham, had one at Catton, they had one at Artley out in Hexhamshire, and the one they used mostly was at a farm called Viewley, which we'll come back to later on. And they had 4 rounds of the Parkwell Shield, and the aggregate winner got that trophy there. I moved forward quite a few years, and when we started the hill climbs, which I'll come on to later, the Parkwell Shield were ran 4 hill climbs, and the winner got the Parkwell Shield. So we continued the 4-round system. The club, when it started, the first secretary was a chap with the splendid name of Ulrich Dixon. Ulrich was an agricultural merchant come mechanic come goodness knows what. So there was him and his brother Jasper Dixon, who were exponents of the motor club, and they funded the rally, funded the motor club, because obviously they had to raise some funds, and they funded the motor club by running dances in various village halls. In the 1940s, 1950s, dancing was a big thing in the villages, the rural villages. So Hexham Motor Club used to run a series of dances, Acomb, Humsaf, Colwell, Haydenbridge. They always avoided Bellingham because there was a lot of fights at Bellingham. But they made good profit out of the village dances, and that's how they funded their club in the early days. The first meeting place was the Raphael Club in Hexham. It was situated just off the marketplace going down Market Street. It's still there today actually. They got it there because 2 or 3 of the club members had been in the RAF. Norman Taylor, who was the first treasurer of the club, he'd been a navigator, radio operator, been out in India. And we had a guy called Harold Robson, who was a founder member of the Hexham Motor Club. He'd won the DFC for flying over, dropping bombs on Berlin and whatnot. He flew 52 missions with Bomber Command, which the average survival rate was about half a dozen, but Harold must have been a lucky guy. So that was the beginnings of the club, a motorcycle club, local lads doing things. The organisation was very simple. This was long before authorisation and all this sort of thing. All you had to do if you wanted to run an event was to get an ACU permit. That was very simple. You went down to the monthly meeting of the northeast section of the ACU, which was the Lord Clyde pub at the top of Westgate Bank, paid the treasurer 7 and 6, and he wrote the permit out there and then for you. That it was so simple these days, so that's the beginning. Then we move forward into the 1950s, and as we moved into the 1950s, cars started to appear, and the membership gradually shifted from motorbike riders and whatnot to car enthusiasts, and so the ACU would let you run a class for cars so you could have a combined permit. So the rallies, very much like the 12 cars were run now, but for bikes as well as cars, and where the bikes were at a disadvantage was some of the more evil organisers put a roads in with a lot of gates, which if you're in a car, your passenger can leap out, open the gate and so on, but when you're on a motorbike on your own, it's just a little bit more difficult. One thing that transpired was there was a little bit of internal politics. As I say, the club was totally motorbike originally, so the trophies were for motorbikes. And when you got cars starting to win in the 1950s, they had to go and acquire some extra trophies specifically for cars. And if you look at the Coronation Trophy there, it does say Coronation Trophy Car Rally, because it's specifically separate from the bikes. And so through the 1950s, the club gradually grew. They moved down out of the Raphael Club. They moved to Hexham's Royal Hotel. Well, they didn't exactly move to the Royal Hotel. They moved to a building behind the Royal Hotel, which had previously been the loft over the stables. The Royal Hotel used to have stabling for the days when horse and carriages used to get there, and the upstairs loft where they kept the hay and whatnot. They cleaned all that out, and they used to let it out for meetings. So the club met there, and they had their annual dinner dance there for many, many years at the Royal Hotel. Sadly, it's done derelict now, but so that's where we were in the 1950s. In 1954, petrol rationing ended, so you could run more events, you could run longer events. Sweetie rationing also finished as well. since the war right up to 1954, sweets had been rationed. So you're looking at a man here who grew in his infancy and young days, was rationed to one wine gum a week. Okay, so then we came into the 1960s, and the momentous year in the 1960s was 1964. We had a secretary then, a guy called Bill Dale, a farmer from over near where the Derwent Reservoir is now. And Bill Dale ran a MGZ something, and he was quite keen for the club to expand and whatnot. So he made inquiries, and eventually the club became an RAC recognised club, and that opened the door to members going and competing on lots of other clubs' events. You used to get invitations to what in them days were called restricted rallies, on National Day or something now, but it's where several clubs you would get an invite to. So you would get invited, for instance, to Consett Motor Club or Durham Motor Club or Northumbrian or Newcastle or whatnot. So we spread our wings and we got experience of going off and doing these big events. Very exciting. And the first one I did was Durham Automobile Club's Rally of the Dales. And rallies in them days, road rallies, 70, 80, 90s, 100s was not unknown. So it was quite a move up. And the other things we did in the 60s, one thing we did which proved very popular were the hill climbs. We certainly, in Northumberland you have an awful lot of hills, and we hit on the idea of running hill climbs, and the first one we had was at a place called Ardley out in Hexhamshire, and it would seem in today's era of sophistication and ever, but bear in mind we're going back more than 50 years. Very primitive. And what we used to do, used to line the cars up over at one side of this valley with the Devil's Water running down the middle. So the cars would be on one side of the valley at the start, and the finish would be at the other side of the valley. And the guy at the start would have a whacking big flag, and the guy at the finish would have a pair of binoculars. His mate would have a stopwatch, and the guy with the binoculars would look, and when the guy at the start dropped the flag, he'd shout, "Go!" and the guy would start the stopwatch, and they would come around to the finish. And that was how we started off at Ardley. Then we had a member, chap in the club, another farmer called Bill Robson. Bill Robson farmed up at East Chesterhope, up there between West Woodburn and Ridsall. It's not very far from where we finished the rallies at the gun at Ridsall, just over. And Bill's farm is down in the bottom of the hill. You can see it off the 68 if you're travelling up towards Carter Bar. And so you could leave Bill's farm and you could either come up a hill onto the A68, or you could come up the other way onto the road that comes back round to Ridsall. So we ran quite a lot of hill climbs there as well. Then we used another road, a place called Westburn Hope, which is right out in Hexhamshire, tucked away out of people's gaze. And we ran them up there, and these were all very popular. And then we had another one called Viewley. I found Viewley when I was going to see a farmer to have a motorbike trial on his land at Fewley. And the road that led up to it, you came off the sort of, not a main road, but the road, and you came over a dry ford, 90 right up the hill, hairpin left, dog leg away up 90 right to the finish, about a mile long. So I asked the guy about it, and he thought, his answer basically was, yeah, crackers, but away you go. So we ran hill climbs at Fewley for a long, long time, and there was always, these were, by the way, these were regularity hill climbs. The idea was that you first run set your standard time, and then you got 2 more runs, and the difference was your penalties. So it was theoretically regularity, but in reality everybody went like places, and had a good blast up the hill. So hill climbs, great. Other things we did in the 1960s. In 1969 we ran the first Hexham Road Rally. We'd watched other people, other clubs running road rallies, and we thought, we can do that. We certainly got the roads. So in 1969, the first Hexham Road Rally was run. It started at West Point Service Station, which is just as you go out of Hexham to the west, or it was, it's not there anymore. There's a big expansive spare land, and we ran it. We got 51 entries, and it was won by a guy called Russell Close from Durham Motor Club. Don't remember Russ, can't care why. He was navigated on the night by a guy called John Dolan. It should have been a guy called Howard Scott. He appears on the entry list, but Howard didn't turn up. A guy called John Dolan. Russell had one of the first Escort twin cams, and he won the rally. But the great thing for us was people liked it, and they enthused about it. They liked the route. Let me tell you about the route. Are you listening, Ali? We started at West Point. We went west. We ran north of Hayden Bridge. We ran up round Hedges Green and top side of the Roman Wall. We went along the Vallum to top of Greenhead Bank, down west Gilsland, turned right and went away up and round every damned road on Bewcastle Fells. Does it sound familiar? And that's probably what got people enthused, because they're fantastic roads. Anybody done the John Robson the other week? Fantastic roads up there. We were invited to be in the 1960 ANEC Road Rally Championship, and we were in that championship every year until it ceased in 1987. We were 3 times voted the best rally in the series. Our main rival was the Short Trophy. They ran a good event as well. Ran a cracking event, the Short Trophy. But we were 3 times voted the best round, and away we went. So road rallying in them days, tremendously strong. As I say, it was not unusual to get over 100 entries, and some cracking events that I'll come to a little bit later on. So now we're going to the 1970s, and one of the first things that happened in 1970 was we moved out of the Royal Hotel, and we moved to the county down the road, and then we went on a bit of a wander because the county was remodeled, you know, like a lot of hotels. It was made sort of open plan. In various places, we went to Miners Arms in Hexham, Lion of Corbridge. We stayed in Corbridge, went to Wheat Sheep for a while, and then we dropped into the Stoppenham Club on St Helens Street. We were at the Stoppenham Club for a lot of years, and it had a nice lounge that they let us have. So we had a lot of quizzes, tabletop rallies, talks. We used to get various people come and do talks and whatnot. The membership grew, and people we had a lot of competitors. One of the great things about the club in the 70s and 80s was the members actually did compete. They competed on quite a high level as well, and give you some indication of how strong the club was. On the 1972 Derwent Rally, which was a forest rally over in the lakes, used Witherden's, Hobcarton, St Merthy, all those classic. We actually entered 2 club teams. One team was 3 minis. They all put them all the minis together and they went. And the other team consisted of 3 very assorted cars. One was a Clan Crusader, one was a Datsun 160J, and one was an MGB V8. When I say an MGB V8, it had started life as an MGB. And the lad that owned it, John Proudlock, had a garage at Wall. He popped a V8 engine in himself. And so 3 odd assorted cars, and we won the team award. And this thing isn't Aladdin's lamp. This is one of the trophies that they gave us for the team award on the Derwent Rally, which is still here today. The Derwent Rally became the Tour of Cumbria, and then it became the Ferrari International Rally. Then we get, and the other thing we did, just as the 60s were coming into the 70s, we won this trophy as well. This is one of 3. And this is the award for the Castrol Dunlop Quiz. Castrol sponsored a national club motorsport quiz competition, and Dunlop co-sponsored it with them. And there were hundreds of entries from all over the country, so they're divided into regions. And for 2 successive years, Hexham won the region Northeast, North Yorkshire, Cumbria, and that. And then we took on the Northwest champions, and then we went to the national semi-finals, which were at some hotel in Blackpool, and where we were soundly beaten both years by Liverpool Motor Club and Ulster Automobile Club. They were the other clubs in the semi-final. We found out later Liverpool won the title outright 2 years running, but the team consisted of 2 motoring journalists and a guy that was a commentator at Oldham Park. So it wasn't quite a level playing field. But Castrol gave us, each member of the team, they gave us a trophy each, and that's one of, so just another one of the club's successes. And going to 1970s still, and one of the great motoring events, in fact, one of the great sporting events in the country at that time was the Lombard RAC Rally. I mean, it really was World Championship event, but all the legendary names to the area, it was really up there. Probably in its day the best international rally in the world. And we got roped in to run a stage. The first stage we ever ran was Churton Head. We also ran Oka Hill, which was fairly cancelled one year. It was covered by national television. And we ran we ran a stage on the Lombard RAC Rally for 13 successive years. We ran one in Kielder one year. Not Kielder, Slavey. We actually went over the border one year and ran Elibank up the Tweed Valley. I'm not quite sure how that came about, but that's what we did. And that was a great occasion. I mean, it used to get football-sized crowds turning up. Guys would turn up 3 days in advance and sleep in their cars to get a good spectating point. In fact, it was so popular that people used to stand on the roadside to watch the cars go by. And in them days, the A68 ran through Riding Mill in Corbridge, and people used to stand outside the Welly at Riding Mill and on the Coins Corner at Corbridge to watch the cars go by. Cholerford Roundabout, where we started the Clive Elliott 12 car last December, there'd be 2,000 or 3,000 there. It just, you can't picture it now, but it really was a big event, and so we were happy to be involved with that. And then, as a club ourselves, we also went into stage rally. We ran, the first one was in Slavey. I'd been, I was still calling, I think, at the time. Anyway, I went to pick my father-in-law up. He was having a drink in the Globe pub in Hexham. And the chap he was having a drink with was a guy called Geordie Carr. And we got talking, and Geordie Carr turned out to be the manager for Forestry Commission at Slaley Forest. So we had a few words, and then I went to see him at his office at Whitehall, just outside the Hexham. And the upshot of that was we got Slaley to run a little stage event. And we ran it for a few years, but there wasn't a lot of mileage. We managed to fiddle about 16 miles or something out of it. So we then transferred the name, we called it the Tynedale Stages, and we coupled up Slaley. We went to Albemarle for a couple of years and went back and forward, Slaley, Albemarle, that type of thing. And then we tried Hampstead Forest one year, but that was a bit of a long drag back and down. It didn't prove too popular. But there were cheap events for clubmen. The lads could afford to do them, so they were quite popular. We also ran a stage event in a quarry, Prodo Quarry, which is over near Edchester. It was Alan Glendinning that got us that one. He was pals with Ernie Goodfellow, who was the manager of Brodo Quarry, and favours were exchanged, and we ran Brodo Quarry. We also used to run a thing which was probably more like a targa rally than a stage rally in an old pit workings called Headley Bottoms, which is only about 2 miles away from here. It actually was leased from the coal board by Newcastle Motor Club, but Newcastle had kind of gone moribund at that time, so we kind of acquired squatters' rights on it, and we ran quite a few, I wouldn't know what you would call them, stage, targa, whatever you like. So we ran them as well. And we also got ambitious and put a second road rally on called the North Tyne Rally, which we only did it 2 or 3 times, but it was quite popular. It was actually a Sunday afternoon one, and but the hill climbs were the big thing. I mean, the hill climbs used to get 20 and 30 entries. It was amazing, you know. And one of the things we did with the hill climbs, we introduced an award for speed. People demanded, they wanted to, you know, some recognition for going quickest. So we got it. We were presented with a cup that's somewhere on the table there called the Canada Cup, which was given to us by a guy called Dickie Wilson, who emigrated to Canada. And so we awarded the Canada Cup for the speed run. I mean, these events, being honest with you, these events weren't strictly legal. But the daft thing is, they could be nowadays because you can get a closed road. So it would be possible to run them. What I did get was a permit. I got a permit from the RAC because I called it a regularity trial. There was a category of permit for regularity trials, and if you very carefully worded the regulations, you could get a permit for them. Yeah. Talking about hill climbs, I'd like very much to talk about a guy called John Robson. Now, John Robson Rally, great, fantastic. But very few of the members these days know who John Robson was. So let me just spend a minute or two telling you about John Robson, because it's an interesting story. The John Robson trophy's there. John gave us it to the club some years ago. John Robson, for many, many years, drove a bus around Hexhamshire and over to Blanchton. And then he moved into running a care home out at Close House, still there. And John had always had a hankering for motorsport, never had the opportunity. And then when the RS 1600 was introduced, John went and bought himself one. He bought the second RS 1600 that County Garage at Carlisle ever sold. They were the RS dealers for that part of the world. So John got his RS 1600 and he came and joined Hexham Motor Club. And he was 64 years of age. And over the following years, John turned out, he did the 12 cars, he did the hill climbs. He loved the hill climbs, he really did. He won that Canada Cup several times. He didn't spare the horses and he's zoomed up the hills. And he did various other rallies. I did a Crownton's Winterlander rally with him one year. And he could pedal, you know. The only thing was, John had exactly the same affliction as I have. He was both stone deaf. So when you were navigating for John, you had to bawl and shout. Simon might tell you I still do it, because I bawled and shouted at him all around the John Robson route. But you really had to shout at John. But he was great. He was still competing when he was 80-year-old. And it was a great joy to see him, you know, having fun, enjoying his motorsport, mixing it there with the young lads. And so that was John Robson. And the other thing John did, I was up seeing him one day, and part of his building was where his daughter had kept a horse, and he'd been cleaning it out. And I jokingly said to him, it'd be a good place for a party in here, John. Why, come and use it, come and use it. So we started a series of summertime barbecues, and we ran them for over 2 years up at Close House. It was the highlight of the summer, you know. We'd have the barbecue and cook your own supper, and then we'd get a disco or something, and ran our own bar, open all hours, of course, and really great. And it was very generous of John to give us the run of the place. And and it has to be said, he was often the last man standing. He didn't rush away from the bar. So that was John Robson. He was our president for a lot of years. Really lovely fella, and I'll say it was a great joy to see him enjoying his motorsport. So we move into the 1980s, and the big thing in the 1980s was, of course, that in 1987 the RSA Motorsport UK pulled the plug on road rallying. They didn't actually ban it, but they made it impossible to run as it had been. I mean, being honest, it had been road racing, really. You had people with full house, Group 4 escorts and Opel Mantas, all that sort of thing. And they just couldn't tolerate it anymore. So basically they brought some draconian rules in, and most people went stage rallying or packed up altogether. A lot of rallies disappeared from the calendar, and we continued with the 12 cars. We never stopped the 12 cars, and they were quite happy for them to run, because they viewed them as a navigation exercise, basically. We continued with the hill climbs, and one thing we did introduce was autocross. Autocross was starting to get quite popular, and when we got a course, the first course we got was up at Ingo. A guy called Charlie Harrison, who was our president for a while as well. Charlie farmed up at Sandyway Heads at Ingo, and he had a field out the back, and he says you can use that if you can make a decent entrance into it. So we went up with shovels and picks and things, and we made a road in, and we had this circuit. The only problem was it was a bit small, and the only way you could run it was a bit like a bicycle pursuit race, where one started that side and one started that side, and you went round in like a pursuit, tried to catch the other guy. So it was a bit small. We couldn't run championship events because the ANIC Autocross Championship was run for 4 at the time. It was the only area in the whole country that actually ran them 4 at a time. Most of the others were 2 at a time. And then we were very lucky because another one of our members was the incomparable Ralph Lucky. And Ralph very kindly gave us some fields, and they're all big fields up at Harler Hill. So we ran quite a few autocross, which were very popular and were very lucrative from our point of view. In them days, autocross was big. Cigarette manufacturer Players Number 6 sponsored a national championship. The ANIC championship used to get 40, 50 entries for every round, and it was a good time to be running autocross. It's in a bit of a trough at the minute. There's a lad called Trevor Owens trying to keep it going, but it's difficult. So autocross was very successful. And then, of course, while the road rallies disappeared, stage rallying came into its own. And we're very lucky around here because there was an awful lot of great high quality stage events. You know, we had more venues than a lot of other parts of the country. I mean, Jim Clark, of course, was coming on then. Hadrian Centurion, Tour of Hampstead, Lindisfarne, Border Counties, Autumn Stages, Lakeland. You know, they were all Tyneside or Otterburn, Cheviot Stages. You were spoiled for choice, really. We're very, very lucky. And then there was a lot of single venue events. You could have been doing one nearly every other weekend. And in them days they were quite affordable, quite cost effective. A lot of the venues have disappeared now, but there was places, Brunton and Eshet, old airfields up in Northumberland, Stubbs Camp, which was a bit rough, but it was good fun. Barford, Brasside, anybody remember them? Whitton Castle, Lambton Lion Park, that was quite a place. Then over in Cumbria, there was a whole squad of them, Great Orton, Silith, Kirkbride, Holborn, Lowther Park, Havering, Clugborough, Hadrian's Camp. All, you know, cracking places. Sadly, most of them now lost. You can't get onto them anymore. Kirkbride, Wigton still run, but most of the others have disappeared, sadly, because they were cost effective. You know, if you look at the cost of going stage rallying now, it's silly. But in them days, just ordinary working chaps could do it, you know. And then 1997, I'll jump forward a little bit, because in 1997, Hexham were instrumental in setting up something called the Tyneside Navigation Series. The people wanted to go road rallying again, and we took a long, hard look at it, and MSA weren't going to wear old style road rallying, but they were prepared to accept something a bit watered down. So we came up with a formula that there would be navigation rallies as opposed to the all selective events, which are basically road races. So navigation rallies. And then we said, well, right, what were the big complaints about the old road rallies? Well, one of them was they went all night. You know, when you wake up a retired brigadier at 3 o'clock in the morning and he comes out with his shotgun, it's not great for public relations. So we said, right, we'll run them 7 o'clock to 10:30, a bit like the 12 cars today. So that got done away with the disturbance of overnight. And then we said, right, we'll use standard road cars. No more Group 4 escorts, no more hairy Chevettes and this sort of thing. Bog standard road car. And it worked. It worked. And the great advantage of doing it that way was you could add in a bit of a social element to it. Again, like our 12 cars, we're still doing it. And so there were 6 clubs that originally agreed to be part of this Tyneside Navigation Series. There was us with the Hexham Navigation Rally. Berwick ran the Buglers Bowl. Bordrecossi ran an event. I can't remember the name of it. All I remember is that Lenny Freshwater ran it and it finished at a pub in Cold Street. Julie Shield, Annick Motor Club, dear old Ken Shield, ran it, that one. Adrian ran an event, again I can't remember, Charlie Tynan and his mates put it on, and the short trophy was a round of the navigation series. And this ran for a few years, and it worked quite well. And it got road rallying up and going again. And just while we're talking about road rallying, I had a look through me trophy cabinet the other day and reminisced about a lot of old rallies and looked at other bits of paperwork and whatnot. Let me just go through, just for the benefit of the older friends that are here with us tonight, and see how many of these you remember, because this was what you could have done in any given season in the Annick. There was the Three Rivers Rally, which was run by Tynemouth Motor Club. That was always a round of the Annick Championship. Tynemouth also run a road event called the Sunbeam. And the first Lindisfarne was a road rally before it became a stage rally. Newcastle Motor Club with a Hunter Cup, also known as the Northumbrian Grand Prix, because the accent was always on speed. And Newcastle also ran one called the St Andrews, and I've got a little certificate in that red book there, because I think it was 1969, the Newcastle Motor Club ran the St Andrews on the coldest night that was ever recorded, I think, in the north of England. It was bitterly cold. Ray Cook and I did it in his Vauxhall Ventura and finished second. Then there was the Guy Fawkes, Northumbrian Motor Club's Guy Fawkes. That was another staple of the Annick Championship. Northumbrian Motor Club was one of 3 motor clubs then based in Newcastle, along with Newcastle itself and Hadrian. And Northumbrian also ran one called the Midford. And then there was Durham. Durham ran the Rally of the Dales. Always a cracking event, always well supported. And the Every Hope, which later became a stage event, but first few years was a road event, normally ran in January when it was bloody cold. Hartlepool Motor Club ran the Cleveland, both the Cleveland and the Hartlepool. I think Hartlepool now run auto tests mainly, but the Cleveland was quite a good. Down Teesside there was a lot of quite good rallies. Stockton Motor Club, they ran the Stocktonian, and that was a motoring news event, the only one that ever came up here in the northeast was the Stocktonian. Used to use the North Yorkshire Moors and that sort of area. Furness Motor Club, way over in the South Lakes, ran an event called the R.L. Brown, which was another motoring news event, and they also ran one called the Towers Wreck. And they went all around the roads around Coniston and Windermere and that way. Phenomenal events. Kirby Lonsdale, Devil's Own, that was another motoring news event. One John Parker told me about the other day, Wyakentonian. Yeah, I'm sure we're both pronouncing it wrong, but never mind. Ripon ran the St Wilfrid's, North Allerton, Allertonshire. Cronington ran the Vindolander Rally. That used to run along the Roman wall, unsurprisingly. Annick ran the Julie Shield. Berwick years ago ran the Border as a road rally before it became stages, and the Bugler's Bowl in the navigation series. Greencroft, some people may remember Greencroft Motor Club and the Jake Robson Rally, which later became the Motor Centre. and there was Blackfine with the swordmaker. Blackfine were a club based in Shotley Bridge. Didn't last very long, but and I think the swordmaker might be the only rally they ever ran. So there was an awful lot of choice. Motor clubs were many more motor clubs than there is now, many more events than there is now, and motorsport really thrived. And then costs started to bite. The Forestry Commission put the cost of stage events up to something silly. Road events suffered from PR problems as the countryside changed from farmers and rural people to more incomers and whatnot, and it just got a lot of hassle and a lot of clubs gave up, which is a shame. Just like to finish off, you'll be relieved to hear, talking about some of the people who have notable achievements, because the club has produced a surprising number of successful drivers on national championships. And I mentioned them briefly a little while ago. Charlie Harrison, who is from the 1950s, really. Charlie used to do speed events, and in 1958 he was the Scottish speed champion. They used to run a lot of events. There were more sprints than races. Places like Charterhall, Winfield, Bowness Hill Climb, Rest and Be Thankful, all them sort of venues up in Scotland. And Charlie won the championship in 1958, and one of the things that he dined out on for years afterwards was that on the Charterhall round that year, he finished first ahead of a young Scottish driver called John Y. Stewart, who went on to be better known as Jackie Stewart, twice world Formula One champion. So that was Charlie's claim to fame, and he never let you forget it. Another guy I mentioned earlier, Ralph Lockey. Ralph built himself in an old farm shed up at Haller Hill there, built himself a Datsun. And in 1977, he won the Triple C Championship. Cars and Car Conversions magazine sponsored this national championship, ran on mostly BT RDA rounds, and Ralph won it. Kevin finished second the following year, am I right? Yep, there you go. So, 2 successes from the club. It was a hell of a championship actually, because being relatively affordable, it used to get, I remember Furness ran around, might have been the festival stages, I'm not sure, but they got 180 entries, and that was quite normal. I think the Southwest Stages was in one year, and that was the same. There was God knows how many entries. So another national success for us was Fred Armand. I don't know how many of you know Fred Armand. He had a garage in Hexham for years. And Fred won the Mazda Hatchback Series in 1979. Mazda backed this national championship. Again, it was on mostly either BT RDA or Castle Autosport ground, so the national rallies. And Mazda put a shed load of to attract, and it did attract not only a lot of entries, but some very high class entries. And Fred won it. He was a cracking good driver. Didn't stick at it very long. He sort of lost interest and went fly fishing, unfortunately. But he certainly had a lot of ability. And one guy I'm delighted to see this evening. Where are you, John Woodman? Anek Autocross Championship. Mentioned Autocross before. There's a man that won it. And against some very big, high, hard hitters. I mean, Autocross in John's era really attracted some. Les Eagleton would be doing it in them days. John Lindoris, Martin Holm, all them sort of people. It really was a high class, very competitive championship. What year was it, John? What year did you win it? Right. Right. So there you go. Another guy you've probably heard of, I think, was Richard Mawson. Richard started out doing the Hexham 12 cars, and he had a star-studded career. He was another phenomenal driver. He won all sorts of things. Won the Anek Championship. Richard has the unique. He won in one single year. He won the Anek Stage Championship, he won the Anek Road Championship, and he won the Anek Autocross Championship, and nobody else has ever done that. Phenomenal driver. And guy that sat alongside him, Geordie Tyndall. Geordie was a member of Hexham for a lot of years, and not only successful competitor, but a hell of an organiser for number of years. Geordie put so much in to organising. There'll be nobody, I don't care who comes along, there will be nobody ever put the amount of work and the amount of effort in organising events for Hexham than Geordie did. He was at it morning, noon and night. He could get roads that nobody else could get, he could get venues that nobody else could get. And he had a star-studded career, won numerous championships, far too many, but probably the most notable was winning the British Open Championship Group 1, which, I mean, you had factory teams and you had all, international drivers. And Geordie teamed up with Russell Close and won Group 1 in the British Open Championship. BTR the year, gold and silver star, same year I think. Phenomenal performances at a very high level. All Hexham members. Paul Wilson won the Galway Tyres Championship. David Robson, you're here tonight, aren't you? See, yes. Champion. North of England Tarmac Champion. Scottish Tarmac Rally Championship. Again, high class championships. All Hexham members, all credit to them. One lady I want to mention, Edna Eagleton. Anybody remember Edna Eagleton? I thought you might. We like to expand on it. Edna, she did a lot of autocross, but one of the other things she did was she was selected as one of the 12 lady drivers. Ford launched a Find a Lady Rally Driver competition, 1979. They got sponsorship from Fabergé, the perfume manufacturers, who had a brand called Kiku, K-I-K-U, and the selected 12 lady drivers that had a sort of selection day at Silverstone. and Edna got picked. And the series consisted of 12 rounds, 6 rally, 6 races, and they went round the country. Edna won the second round, 10-lap race at Silverstone. She didn't do so well in the series overall because she could never get a decent co-driver. She tried various women and they weren't great. And I was doing the BTRDA championship that year, and we bumped into her at various events, and they were invariably either lost or they didn't know what time they were due at the next stage and that sort of thing. So, but then she went autocross. Her and her husband Les had a pair of very beautiful RS 1600s. They really were immaculate things, and they did autocross. They did rallycross. They went over to Holland and competed in the European rallycross events over there. So that Fabergé series is the one that launched Louise Aitken Walker on her. Louise didn't win the championship. I think she was third, but the two women that beat her that decided weren't very marketable. So Louise was 19-year-old. She was unattached. So Ford could market her, and she went on, did very well. Let me just finish by talking a guy who joined Hexham Motor Club in 1965 and was a member for many years. He sort of was a member, then he dropped out a little bit, then he was a member, then he dropped out again because he had a business to run and whatnot. And his name was Alan Conley, he still is. And Alan rallied minis for years, and then he rallied an Imp, and then he rallied Avengers. And in 1972, there was a car manufacturer set up at Washington called Clan. And the Clan Crusader came out, and Alan took a great interest in this. Alan rallied Imps. The Clan had an Imp engine in. So he went down and saw Paul Hathaway, the MD of Clan, and put a considerable amount of input into the design of a rally Clan. And then Hathaway kind of did the dirty on him, and he gave the car to Andy Dawson, who was a bit of a hot shoe at the time. And so Alan said, right, I'll build my own car. And that's what he did. He would do his day's work at Wylam Garage, and then he would go down to Clan, and him and his brother Dennis built the car on working night shifts. And the week after the car was finished, he took it up to Mull, to the Tour of Mull, and he won the rally. And he won it by almost 4 minutes. And Tour of Mull in them days was both a motor and news round and a Scottish Championship round, which puts it into context. And phenomenal performance, really. And then fast forward 6 years, and he built another car. He took a Talbot Sunbeam, but he didn't put the 2-litre Lotus engine in. He put the 1-litre engine in, which was basically the old Hillman Imp engine, but turned round so it was backwards forwards thing. And he thought it might be a useful car for the 1300 class. So we took it to Hampsley, for the Tour of Hampsley in December 78, and it won the class there. So he decided to do BTRDA with it, and he done BTRDA, and he didn't quite manage to win the class. A guy called Malcolm Oxborough, who was worked for British Leyland and had what was basically a works Mini Cooper, he won. But we moved up from BTRDA to Castle Autosport the next year, and he won the class 1300, giving away for like a third of the engine size, and he won the class. So cracking performance, and I'm very proud to say that I sat in with him, you know. So there you go. Oh, and I must not forget Michael Glendinning, who I thought might have been here tonight, but he's probably out pulling a car out of a ditch somewhere. But Michael has had a very successful career in both the North of England Tarmac Championship, which he's won a few times, Solway Rally Stage Championship that Wigton run over in Cumbria. I think he won that with his Nova, and he's won a lot of rallies. Michael, he's a very fast driver, very good engineer. So you see the club over the years been very successful club. It's been a very productive club for bringing on young drivers and whatnot, and it still is today with the 12 cars and whatnot. We're still seeing guys coming as raw novices and progressing up and getting and spreading their wings, going and doing bigger runs. So that's Hexham Motor Club, potted history. I think the Buffy's arrived. The Buffy's arrived. Oh, and
2 more minutes, Eddie.
Some presentations,
Aye.
don't you? Do you want to come
Yeah.
and grab